The Strait of Hormuz stays shut, keeping 1/5 of global oil trade off the market until Iran and the United States resolve their standoff over blockades and sanctions. This is Omni View, episode 140. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai stated that Iran will keep the Strait of Hormuz closed until the United States lifts its naval blockade on Iranian ports, pays compensation for war damage, removes economic sanctions, and releases frozen Iranian assets. The strait normally carries roughly 1/5 of the world's traded oil supplies, and its continued closure is described as the most lasting consequence of the current conflict. The statement sets clear conditions before any reopening can occur. Iranian officials have maintained this position for months, while shipping routes have lengthened around the Cape of Good Hope. Reuters and AP both report the same core facts from Iranian officials, yet they place different weight on the broader stakes. Reuters frames the announcement as a direct response to U.S. naval actions and highlights the immediate pressure on global energy flows through the narrow waterway. AP emphasizes Iran's list of demands, including compensation and asset releases, and notes how the closure has already altered shipping patterns for months. Both outlets draw on the same official Iranian position without introducing conflicting data on volumes or dates. The shared facts include the spokesperson's name and the explicit list of 4 conditions. Observers will watch whether any third-party mediation emerges or whether oil prices move further in response to sustained restrictions on the waterway. Shifting now to developments in Africa. Congo's health authorities report at least 2,000 deaths and 4,381 confirmed cases in the current Ebola outbreak. The figures come from official case tracking and reflect the scale of the epidemic across affected regions. National monitoring systems continue to record new infections daily. AP presents the numbers as the latest update from national health monitoring systems, focusing on the human toll and the need for continued containment measures. The reporting draws directly from Congo's health ministry data releases without additional interpretation from outside observers. Health teams will continue tracking new cases and deaths while scaling treatment and contact tracing efforts in the hardest-hit areas. Next, an earthquake in South America. A powerful earthquake struck Colombia, leaving at least 18 people dead according to initial reports. Rescue and assessment operations are underway in the affected zones. The event prompted immediate deployment of emergency teams to both urban and remote locations. BBC reports the death toll from on-the-ground sources and notes that further updates are expected as teams reach more remote areas. The coverage relies on local authorities and rescue coordinators for the casualty count. Emergency services will continue search and rescue work and begin damage assessments to determine the extent of rebuilding needed. Turning to Asia. China is increasing its reliance on artificial intelligence systems to improve weather predictions as extreme weather events become more frequent and intense. The approach aims to give earlier and more accurate warnings for storms, floods, and heat. Government agencies are integrating AI models into existing forecasting infrastructure. Reuters highlights government investment in AI tools as a practical response to recent weather patterns that have caused widespread disruption. The reporting centers on the technical upgrade rather than broader policy debates. It draws on statements from Chinese meteorological authorities about the scale of recent events. Forecasters will test the new AI models against real-time events to measure gains in prediction speed and accuracy. Now to Europe. Spain is preparing for an upcoming solar eclipse at the same time authorities monitor dry conditions that raise wildfire danger in several regions. Event planning includes extra safety measures for crowds and equipment. Viewing sites have been selected with attention to both astronomical visibility and fire prevention access. Reuters notes that eclipse viewing sites overlap with areas already under heightened fire alert, requiring coordinated logistics between astronomy events and emergency services. The coverage draws on statements from regional emergency coordinators about overlapping risks. Officials will adjust viewing areas and fire prevention protocols as the eclipse date approaches. Meanwhile, water conditions in England. Official measurements show more than 2/3 of England experiencing drought, with forecasts indicating the situation will worsen in coming weeks. Water companies and local authorities are monitoring supplies and usage. Reservoir levels and river flows have fallen below seasonal norms in multiple counties. BBC reports the geographic extent of the drought from national monitoring data and notes expected further restrictions on water use. The reporting references data from the Environment Agency on the proportion of land affected. Regulators will review usage rules and reservoir levels to decide on any additional conservation steps. Now, some progress worth knowing about. Brands including Uniqlo, Levi's, and Primark have begun offering repairs or teaching customers basic mending skills. The programs aim to keep clothes in use longer and reduce the volume of new purchases. Services are already operating in multiple countries and include both in-store repairs and instructional workshops. AP reports that the initiatives can lower costs for shoppers while extending product life. The same reporting notes that some critics argue repairs alone do not address the larger issue of overproduction in the fashion industry. The programs are already operating in multiple countries. Now, to really understand this story, there is something most coverage leaves out. Most reporting on the Strait of Hormuz focuses on the simple fact of closure. Yet the deeper mechanism is how a single narrow waterway concentrates leverage for both the coastal state and outside powers. The strait sits between Iran and Oman. Any vessel must pass through waters that can be monitored or restricted from shore-based systems, giving the coastal state physical options that wider oceans do not. When a blockade is imposed, the immediate effect is rerouting of tankers around Africa, which raises shipping costs and delivery times for buyers in Asia and Europe. Historical precedent shows that the last sustained closure, in the 1980s, produced exactly these longer voyages and higher insurance rates without halting all trade. Knowing this pattern, when officials announce conditions for reopening, listeners can check whether the stated demands match the actual volume of oil that has been diverted and whether alternative routes are absorbing the difference. One concrete step is to compare weekly tanker tracking data from public maritime sources against official statements on how much oil is still moving. Publicly available satellite data on vessel movements can be cross-checked against Energy Agency monthly reports to see whether announced volumes align with observed traffic. This verification habit reveals whether policy statements track real-world flows or serve mainly as negotiating positions. If you want to go deeper on the Strait of Hormuz, compare how Reuters and AP are covering the developments. Tomorrow, watch for any signs of third-party mediation offers on the Strait of Hormuz. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best-informed people read more than one perspective, and the calmest ones know that most days, somewhere, something is quietly getting better. For full source links, check out today's written briefing on the Omni View Summaries page. Share this with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nera Network. Links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the Nera Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets. Each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. Models and Agents, your daily briefing on AI models and agents. Find every show free at neranetwork.com. Want the written briefing with source links? Each show keeps a summaries page on neranetwork.com, scannable, dated, and free. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.